Well, a hearty shalom to you. Jeffrey Seif here. Glad you're joining me on a journey. We're getting into the Bible together, and what a great book it is, and what a great story it is today in the 10th chapter of Acts. We're looking at the story of the first person of non-Jewish extract to get involved in this whole Jesus story. It's taken us to the 10th chapter, by the way. It started off amongst the Jews, and I'm glad it's going back to Jewish people. Here, an individual of non-Jewish extract named Cornelius has beckoned Peter to come and talk to him, and it took some persuasion, supernatural, and others. And what happens finally is that Peter comes and he's talking, and in verse 44 we're told that while Peter was still speaking, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, fell on all those hearing the message, all of those. And we'll see those were individuals of non-Jewish extract. And this was striking at a variety of levels. In verse 45, we're told the circumcised believers who came with Peter were astonished because the gift of the Ruach HaKodesh had been poured out even on the Gentiles. Sounds to me like they weren't expecting it. You know, prior, Jesus told Peter and others, go into all the world and preach, but they didn't go. Again, we're here in chapter 10. And the only reason why we're here isn't because they were minded to go into all the world. It's because someone from the world named Cornelius came and drug them into it. And the Lord, kind of with a vision and the like, helping facilitate the process. There's a few things that I want to just explore with you while we're looking at that particular story. One of which is, we're told the Spirit fell on all those hearing. And we're told that the circumcised folk were astonished that the gift of the Holy Spirit had been poured out. In verse 46, and they were hearing them speak in tongues and magnifying God. They really had an experience here. And I don't really quite know how to say this. I was giving some thought to it, and I still don't really quite know how to say it. But just from my own, I don't know what Christianity is apart from having an experience with the Christ, with the Messiah. I don't know what it is. I raised kids, they've grown up, and they're walking with the Lord, I'm pleased to say. But I don't understand what it is to be brought up in a world where individuals are enculturated into biblical truths, and they just kind of follow along with it. I don't understand what that is personally. I don't have any basis for it because for me, I was radically transformed. I had encounter through prayer, and I understood myself to have been transformed experientially in the process. That's the only religion I know. I mean, that's the genesis of it all for me, rather than have been raised in a group and children's ministry and a youth group and going off and making a decision and so forth. You know, I've heard it said, you know, well, here when I'm coming to you from Texas, and down here there's a lot of Baptists, you know, and folks say, I'm Baptist born and Baptist bred, and when I die, I'm Baptist dead. You know, I mean, enculturated into the tribe. And again, that could be Lutheran, Methodist, Episcopalian. I'm not just picking on the Baptists, but I'm saying there is this raising up another generation. They were born into the house, and then they're kind of born and bred into a Christian understanding. Here, there's a kind of being born again into it. And my guess, well, it's really more than a guess. I think that even individuals that are raised up in a Christian household still need to have their own personal experience with it all. That's what's happening here. It's shocking. It's there's emotion. There's experience. It's just not, you know, hearing biblical truths and intellectually ascending to them and saying, I believe, but rather than someone just saying, yes, I subscribe to those beliefs. There's something of heaven that comes down and touches. And even the language that the Spirit was poured out on them. There's this, if you can think primitively, the farmers did everything they could to, you know, prepare the soil and plant the seed, but you needed heaven to open up and pour down the rain. And, you know, the parents can do everything they can, and we should do all that we can to help enculturate, you know, biblical faith and virtue, but we need heaven to open up and pour down the rain. And That happens in different ways, sometimes unexpectedly, you know, that here, you know, I mean, the way it works in culture today is the rabbi or the reverend, you know, the messianic rabbi or whatever, finishes the speech and then there's an invitation for prayer and someone accepts. Here, Peter never even finishes his speech. Boom, it just happens. I mean, that was rather surprising. Just came down supernaturally. It's not the agency of the reverend who's kind of working this out. You know, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 3 songs and an altar call and call the choir up to sing Just As I Am without one plea. And I'm going to make these appeals and we'll let this go out for 20 minutes and see who responds and see how the Holy Spirit shows up in the house. I'm not even trying to critique an orchestrated invitation, an honest appeal like that. I'm just saying here, just thump, it just happened. Really unexpected. And it was shocking to those Jews who came with Peter, who associated with Jews only, really. He was a little narrow-minded, I think, and they didn't expect it. Peter didn't expect it. And Peter was kind of thrown on his heels in verse 47. Guys, you know, he looks at his Jewish friends who were believers in Jesus who came with him. He says, guys, what do you think? Is it okay to baptize Gentiles? And, well, you know, they figure, well, you know, these people have the Holy Spirit just like us. Let's go with it. And verse 48, so he immersed them in the name of Messiah Yeshua. And then they asked him to stay. You know, I think a sign of individuals that have been born anew is they want to stay close to the agent who helped facilitate that for them. Which is one of the reasons why, you know, I agree with St. Augustine, by the way, who said, if you don't have a church as your mother, you probably don't have God as your father. You know, this lonely drifting, this independent agent out looking for religious truth. That people cluster with people, and someone comes to know the Lord through a particular ministry. There's that, you know, I kind of like staying in there within the fold. Well, they asked him to stay for a few days. They wanted to learn. They wanted to hear. You know, now today we have the benefit, thank God, of an open Bible, and I'm so pleased to have been able to participate in a managerial sense in facilitating its coming to the world, this Messianic Jewish rendition called the Tree of Life. Of course, it was really the president of the corporation, Dinah Greenberg, it was really her baby, but I was the midwife, if you will, to help bring it out and, you know, bring it forth and clean it up and everything. So I'm glad to be able to do that. And I'm glad that women and men are opening up the Bible and offering a telling of it. And I'm glad that individuals are experiencing the Lord afresh in new ways and new days. And I want you to stay close to the source of this. That said, and as I put a wrap on this, and this will sound shamelessly entrepreneurial, but you know, I do want you to stay with the Tree of Life Bible Society, as you'll see new products coming out to help raise up a new generation. I kind of spoke disparagingly, or it might seem to have said that, because my own experience has been just an individual who wasn't raised to believe in Jesus, who then had an encounter. We do want to reach down in generations to come. I know I did it in my own way with my own family, to be sure. And similarly, the Bible Society now is developing product venues to reach into the younger generations, to get them when they're kids. You know, so many decisions are made for the Lord when people are young, and so we want to help facilitate that. Want you to stay with us as we endeavor to do that. Well, hey, listen, blessings to you. God bless. We'll do this again in a week, okay? Ciao.